Hi, it's Becky here from Genie Frog Crochet, and in today's little tutorial I'm just going to show you how to do a granny stripe. A lot of times people ask me how to stop the sides of a granny stripe going wibbly wobbly or out of a nice sort of straight edge. So I'm going to show you how I do it. I'm just going to do a little swatch like I have with this one, but obviously you can make it as big as you like to make a blanket if you want to. I don't use turn-in chains at all in mine. I'm going to be doing it with stacked stitches, and I will show you how I do that, and I think that possibly helps to keep the edges so nice and straight. So for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to be using some of this leftover DK weight yarn that I have. I believe this is Yarn Smith's Lagoon yarn, and because it's a DK weight I'm going to use my 4mm hook, but it's up to you. You can use any weight of yarn you like for your project, and whichever hook corresponds to your yarn. So I'm going to use US terms throughout. And to start off, I'm just going to make a slip knot and pop it on my hook. Now for a granny stripe, you want to start out with a multiple of 3, and then you're going to add on 2. So your multiple of 3 should basically be the length you want your project to be. So I'm just going to chain 24 for my little swatch that I'm showing you, but you chain, say if you wanted a baby blanket, you might want to chain 120, and then you add on 2 after that. So a multiple of 3 plus 2, so I'm going to chain 24. So to chain, you yarn over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to go a bit faster. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So that's my multiple of 3. So I'm then going to add on 2 more. And for this first setup row, this isn't part of our 2-row repeat. We're just going to do, just to make the bottom edge nice and neat, we're going to do a row of single crochets. So you're going to skip that first chain, and into this next chain we're just going to make a single crochet. So insert your hook into the chain, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops, and that's a single crochet. So into the next chain, do the same, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So you're basically going to do that all the way along the length of your chain. Make single crochets, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. So we're going to do this all the way along, and I'm going to pause and continue off camera, so I will meet up with you when I get to the end of my chain. Okay, so I've got 2 chains left, a single crochet into each of those. Now a lot of people now would chain 3 and then turn, with the chain 3 making up their first double crochet of the next row, but the way I do it is I just turn, no chains at all, just turn my work, and into that first stitch there I'm going to put a single crochet, so straight into that first stitch, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So that's a single crochet, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make another single crochet, but we're going to make it under this loop here that makes up part of our first single. So this is why it's called a stacked stitch, because we're basically stacking 2 single crochets on top of each other to make it up to the height of a double. So you go under this loop here, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2. So these 2 loops here that are the top of the first single, the second single crochet that we made, that will be the top of your stitch. So basically the top of your first double crochet stitch. And I think it just makes it a bit neater when you come to go into it after the next row than going into the top of a chain stitch. So the granny stripe is a 2-row repeat. So this is going to be the first of the 2-row repeat. So into that same stitch where we just made that stack stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. So you're going to yarn over, go into that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. Then we're going to skip 2 stitches, and into the next stitch we're going to make a granny cluster, which is made up of 3 double crochets all into the same stitch. So yarn over and insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. So we're going to do 2 more of those. And that's your first granny cluster. Then you're going to skip 2 stitches again, and into the next one a granny cluster. So 3 double crochets together. So we're going to follow those steps all the way along. So skip 2, and into the next one make a granny cluster. Skip 2, okay, so I may as well finish this row off with you. Skip 2, granny cluster in the next one, my yarn bouncing around here. 1, 2 and 3. And then when you get to the end you should have 3 stitches left, so you should be able to skip 2, and then into that last stitch we're going to mirror what's at the beginning of your row. So with a granny stripe you always make it symmetrical, so there's 2 double crochets at the beginning of our row. So in that last stitch we're going to put 2 double crochets. One and 2. So that's the first row of our 2-row repeat. So the last row of the repeat we're going to turn again, and we're going to do another stacked stitch into this first stitch of the row. So no chains, you just go straight into the top of that stitch, pull up a loop, and make a single crochet, and then another single crochet under this loop, and that is your double crochet. And for this second row, we're just going to do one double crochet at the beginning of the row, and then into this space between your cluster and your 2 double crochets of the first row, we're going to go into that space and make a granny cluster. So 3 double crochets together, and then you're basically going to make a granny cluster in between each granny cluster of the previous row. So 3 double crochets in between each. Again, when we get to the end, we're going to put a cluster in that space between the last cluster and the 2 double crochets, and we're going to end the row with the symmetry as we began it. So there's just 1 double crochet at the beginning of this row. So in that stacked stitch that we made, see those 2 loops there. Under those 2 loops, that is the top of your stacked stitch. So into that stitch, we're just going to make 1 double crochet on its own. Like that. So it's these 2 rows that you're going to repeat to make your granny stripe. So every other row starts and ends with 2 double crochets, and every other row starts and ends with 1 double crochet. So to start the next row, you would just turn your work, and into that first stitch you would put a stacked stitch in there, and then I like to put the second stitch in between this double crochet and this cluster here. It gives it a nice straight edge, then you can see. So that's your 2 double crochets to start the row. So then you would just continue doing your clusters all the way along. Until you get to the end of your row, and then you would end it just as you started it. So you would put 1 double crochet in this space between your cluster here and your stacked stitch, and the last double crochet would go in the top of that stacked stitch. So let me just show you. Let me whiz through this row to show you what I mean. And a granny stripe is as simple as that. You just repeat those same 2 rows as many times as you like, or as many times as you need to make the project that you want to make. And the granny stripe and granny square and granny stitch in general is such a beautiful crochet stitch, because it's what comes to mind when people think of crochet. So into this space here between that stacked stitch and that cluster, put 1 double crochet in there, and then your second of the 2 will go into the top of that stacked stitch under those 2 loops. and then you would just turn and make a stacked stitch into this first one as you did there. And then your first cluster will go into that first space. And there you have it. So if I show you again the first one that I made, you can carry on with your rows as many times as you need to. Because I've made one of these squares now, it's possibly given me an idea, because I've got a lot of scraps of variegated yarn, so I think I might just make some granny stripe squares and possibly join them all together. But yet another whip for me. So I hope you found this helpful to keep your granny stripe edges straight. Thanks ever so much for joining me again. If you don't already subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. And a like and a comment. A comment would be lovely. I love the comments. Thank you so much, guys. And I will see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.